we are going to talk tonight about a couple of things. We're going to start off here talking a little bit about just some basic organizing. So in order to stand up and defeat book bans or any other extremism that may be going on at your school board, you have to bring your community together to do that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, how you do that. We want to then have Kim share her actual experience with doing this so you can learn from what she has done. And then we're going to come back in and talk more specifically about fighting back about book bans, how to be effective in front of school board, some talking points around book bans, and then just some general advice for all of this. And then we will let you go and go on with your evening. So first of all, I just want to say welcome. We call this our Troublemaker training because in my community, I live in kind of a conservative area. After the 2016 election, we started organizing and showing up at meetings, and the elected officials were not too happy because that had never happened before. And they started calling us troublemakers on the record. So we want to teach everybody here how to be troublemakers in their own community and stand up for the values and the things that you believe in. We know at school board that there are just never-ending issues because these are politically planned issues, whether it's anti-CRT, anti-DEI, fighting against sex education, or obviously book banning. The issues that just keep multiplying, and they are not going to go away, and especially not in an election year like 2024. So what we want to focus on tonight is how to effectively organize people in your community to fight back on these issues. And I always like to give a shout out to, I know this is probably predominantly women in the audience. A lot of times I know that we tend to question our abilities, or we feel like if we're not an expert and we don't know everything about every topic, that we're not qualified to do anything. That is absolutely bunk. If you care at all and just want to make a difference, you are absolutely qualified to start organizing and to start making a difference in your community. So what I like to, I'm using Canva for the first time tonight, so I'm hoping I don't screw up this presentation on these slides here. But what I like to say with this is just do it. Just get started. You can do it. Go for it. I promise you, if you start a Facebook group or you start getting people together on Slack or Signal, it will not just be you and a couple of friends. I don't care if you know 3 people to get started, or 25, or 100. The group I started here in my local community, we started with about 12 people on Facebook. We have 750 people in that group. Our national Facebook group Sweep, started by a woman in Kentucky on a whim with 25 people. It has 220,000 people in it. I have yet to meet anybody who has tried to start a grassroots group to fight issues at their school and say to me, oh, nobody joined, it didn't take off. That just doesn't happen. So just jump in, get started, and I promise you that, like I want to say, if you build it, they will come. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how do you get started organizing? How do you start bringing people together to make sure that you have a group that can stand up together and fight back at the school board level? Well, the first thing you want to think through is just like, obviously, how are you going to communicate, right? You need to build a group, and you need to have a place where people can share information and get to know each other. So obviously, Mark Zuckerberg rubs a lot of us the wrong way, but I have to say Facebook is a really good place to organize. It's a low barrier to entry. People don't have to come to a meeting. They don't have to attend anything. They can just find you online, click join, and you're in the group, and you're able to communicate, have conversations, get to know people, share information. It can be private. So there's a lot of really good benefits to doing that. But there are people who don't like social media. So I've met groups that just use email listservs, or you can now use Signal or Slack, or there are so many apps and ways to communicate. So just kind of think through, like, how are we going to, keep the line of communications open? How are we going to build camaraderie in this group? So pick the way that you're going to communicate, and then think about what your focus is. So do you just want to focus on school board issues, or are you really interested in working on like all the issues in your city or your county? Are you just fighting about book banning, or maybe you're fighting for like racial justice and then fighting against DEI in the schools? Or do you want to like go to your state house and fight on like all the issues that you believe in? Just kind of figure out what your group stands for and what you're going to be fighting on. And then also who is invited in. So you kind of want to set your parameters and your focus before you get going. So is this a group that is open to anybody in your school district, anybody in your city? Do you have to live there? Could you just be a business owner? Is it only open to certain political parties? Like, make these decisions before you get started. And then you definitely need to enforce those rules, because people will try to push them. Like, if your group takes off and people are excited about it, they're going to want to start inviting their sister-in-law or their bestie who lives like, 3 cities away. But the problem with that is if you get too big and you don't stick to your parameters and your focus, then the group actually does lose focus, and you can't really get anything done because someone's doing this over here, someone's doing this over here. So you really kind of have to decide who is part of this group, what are we working on, and you really need to stick to that and enforce those rules. People will push back, but that's okay. And then the fun part is just like what's in the name, right? There's a lot to be said about this. So some groups take it serious, they lay out exactly what it is that they are standing up for. So it could be, parents in Mason, Ohio for good public schools. I'm just throwing off the top of my head. So you decide what your vibe is and what you want. Do you want the name to be really clear so people know exactly what you're fighting for and they will join? This is also a time, though, to have a little bit of fun. We're going to talk about the social aspect of organizing, and there has to be fun with it. So a lot of times people will, everything from just things that are going to make you laugh to curse words to whatever it may be. But it's a fun vibe and it brings people in. So like for some examples, there's a group in Cleveland called Grassroots Resistance, and they call themselves GRR because they like the GRR noise. There's also a group called GRR, that's Grandparents for Reproductive Rights, that I met. So GRR is popular. Funky East Dallas Democrats, Nasty Women of Some Location, so there's a lot of fun names you can come up with. So really think about like your vibe and what is it you want the name to kind of tell people about what you're doing or who you are. Okay, yep, good. It's actually working. I was a little worried it wasn't. Now, more things to consider. Like I said, all work and no play. Nope, you need to have fun. This has to be social, because as much as people care about the issues, if all you're doing is grinding and working, people are not going to come back, right? Part of the reason that this is successful is because people build relationships and friends doing this work. I can tell you that the group I'm in here in Mason, I have best friends from this group that I would never have met otherwise. And that's been one of the huge benefits beside making change in my community, is just getting to know some really, really amazing people. So there has to be some fun to go along with the work. So whether that is that you guys meet in person, maybe go to a school board meeting and then go out for happy hour afterwards, or you have some social events that are just social. You're not doing work. You're just getting to know each other. A pizza night at someone's house, or just some kind of a get together at a restaurant. If you're on Zoom a lot, that's okay. Meet a half hour early and have like a little happy hour, get to know each other, do some icebreakers. There's lots of ways, but you definitely want to build the social and the fun into it. And then the last piece I like to talk about is just delegating. A lot of people who maybe get involved in this are type A personalities, because you're doing the organizing, you're getting it together. But if you don't involve other people, they might lose interest. So honestly, when you have an action, there's something you want to do, you want to go to a school board meeting, you want to set up a rally, make a list of all the things you need to do and delegate them out to people in your group. People are flattered if they are asked to do something. They might say no because they're busy or whatever, but nobody is going to be offended that you said, hey, I think you would be really great at this, or you have the skills to take this on. They're not going to be offended at that. And if they take it on, they are going to feel much more connected to what they're doing because they are investing their time and energy into it. And they're more likely also to stay involved and come back. We just did this recently with the group I'm in, where we lost our vice president because she was a mom of young kids and it was a crazy time in her life. And we asked another woman who's an empty nester. And at first she was like, I don't think I have the skills. And we're like, yes, you do. She is kicking butt in that position right now. So definitely delegate and ask people to get involved. I'm going to stop screen share for a minute, and I want to jump over to Kim and Julie, and I want to have Kim share some of her like real life on the ground experience doing this work.
Hi, everyone. Hey, how are you? So, Kim, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone and
Yeah, sure. My name is Kim Barbarell. I live in a very small, very conservative area of Bucks County, Pennsylvania. A lot of people know Bucks County, Pennsylvania for some of our very, very extremist school boards, in particular Central Bucks and Penridge. So I am right next door to all of those happenings. And thankfully, they have flipped their school boards, and they did so with some really amazing grassroots groups on the ground. Um, I do my own work up here, and I was saying earlier, this is a very interesting moment for me because the way I first found red, wine, and blue was from this training. And now I actually work for red, wine, and blue. So, yeah, so
So,
my journey has been very, very fun.
well, we'll get into that in just a minute. So tell us a little bit about what's been going on in your school district, or even if you want to share about Central Bucks or Penridge a little bit. I know it's a loaded question for you.
It is a bit of a loaded question. So the interesting thing that's happening in this very moment, Central Bucks and Penridge both started with the book bans. They started with the, bathroom bills, the anti-trans bathroom, anti-trans in sports bills. So, or I should say policies that were changing and seemingly came out of nowhere. They mobilized, they fought back, they flipped their boards. That is not the case everywhere. A lot of us are still dealing with these challenges, even in Bucks County, with these really amazing examples right next door. So in my district, for example, we didn't have the people power and the money to be able to fight all of the extremists. So we still wound up with two who are currently sitting on our board. And while we don't have book ban challenges currently, we are still dealing with issues of extremism, attacking our teachers, particularly teachers who include like LGBTQ characters in various pieces of their lessons. Teachers here are still afraid to use books that have LGBTQ characters or characters of color, and so the effects are lasting, right? The effects don't just stop because you flip your board. There are still many places that are dealing with these issues.
So I know how you found us, but how did you get involved, and how did all the others get involved? What started the folks who are fighting back?
Yeah, so I'm a mom of two kids. My oldest is high needs, neurodivergent, and I have spent a lot of time as a stay-at-home mom for him. I didn't activate in 2016 because I could not. I mean, I was in the thick of it. Once we got his issues kind of settled, and I realized this, it was 2021, really before those culture wars kicked up here. The masking wars were apparent. We had folks who were brought into our school board meetings who did not live here, creating a ruckus. People were beginning to feel intimidated and scared. And in my tiny community, very conservative, our school district is really small. A Black woman ran for school board for the first time ever in our history. And when that happened, I said, oh, she's probably going to need some help around here. And so I volunteered and just contacted her and said, hey, I've never really done anything politically, but things seem like they're getting a little intense, and I feel like you might need some help. What can I do? And that was kind of the end of that story. I wound up working for her and kind of feeling my way through. I made some mistakes. I figured some things out. I met new people, which for me, and everyone says, no, that's not true. You're not an introvert. Trust me, I am a massive introvert. And so I wound up helping on her campaign. And as I was doing that, I realized people in my area weren't talking. They weren't getting the information they needed to vote at the school board level. There was no one there to give them information let alone say, hey, let's all go to the school board meeting together so you can see this happening real time. So after that election, and my candidate lost, unfortunately, to, at the time, a very QAnon-oriented woman who flew that flag loud and proud, which was, you know, concerning to say the least. And so I just wanted to establish a place where people could get good information and start talking, because we all felt so isolated and alone. And so I started with a group of 10. And the very first thing I did, I found a partner. I found one person who was as concerned as I was. And we each called some friends. And I said, you know what? We don't have the expertise yet to just kind of like start making all these campaign plans and figuring out candidates and whatnot. I said, we need to do something for our community. We need to be part of our community, and we need to show up for our community. So we got a list of teachers from all of our schools, and we sat down, the 10 of us, and we wrote, and we drank wine, and we ate, and we wrote notes of gratitude to our teachers.
That's cool.
We didn't sign them. Yeah, we didn't sign them as any type of group. We just put it as our community. We said, my school district is the Palisades district. We wrote the Palisades community. We didn't want to take credit. We just wanted to make them feel like they knew there were people supporting them. And I don't think I realized in that moment how that was a political act. That was a very strong act of resistance to say in that moment, we support you. And since then, we started with those 10. We started talking about what the work we were doing. We did the teacher thank yous. We talked about our librarians. We talked about some of these things we started to do that were out of the box. And, you know, the more we got involved, the more people showed up. People grabbed their friends. We started a small band book club where everyone would come and talk about the book. And then we would match up and kind of a piece of education with that banned book about things actually that were happening at Central Bucks at the time. And people just kept coming. And I started with 10 and we're at 300 now.
Wow, that's
in
great.
Our teeny tiny. Yeah. And we still have a core group of, 30 people or so who are very, very active. But I tell you, every time I work the polls, I have someone who I don't even know come up to me and say, hey, thanks for sending out those emails with the information about voting. There's all those lurkers, same on Facebook, so yeah, so that's kind of my story about how I got started and what we continue to do. We're still fighting extremism. We organized to have groups of speakers go to meetings to defend teachers who were getting called out from a local extremist pack. So it's sustainable. It's still here today and it's still growing, which is really amazing to me.
So what advice do you have for people who want to start something in their own communities?
Well, the first thing I would say is don't stop yourself before you get started.
Yeah.
I think Julie mentioned it at the top, right? Like you can talk yourself out of thinking you can be impactful very quickly. So don't stop yourself before you get started. The power of a group of 5 friends getting together is immense in terms of how it impacts people around you when they see you being effective and having fun and doing things. The other thing I would say is, in the current state of our democracy, these challenges seem overwhelming, particularly when they're impacting your children or your community so heavily. Don't think that you have to just do these immense grand actions because writing thank you notes to your teachers matters. And it is all way. Yeah, Yeah, don't think you have to go big. Don't think because you don't know all of the politics and the who's who and the what's what going on that your voice doesn't matter, because it does, particularly in your local community. So start small. Do something fun, express gratitude, be kind. That is an act of resistance right now. And it all grows. It all grows. You learn along the way. I can't tell you how grateful I am for the community now that I work in and I'm surrounded by, and the change, the impact we've had. It's kind of selfish because because it really is quite fulfilling, and we really feel we're making a change. And again, if I can do it here in a very conservative, very tiny community, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it.
Well, I absolutely love that thank you note idea. I think probably others I see folks in the chat talking about it as well. I'm going to borrow that.
Librarians too. Librarians
Yes.
like gratitude too, because they've
Absolutely.
had a rough couple years.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Julie, send it back over to you.
So what we're going to talk about now is tactics, showing up. Thank you so much, Kim, by the way, too. And I love what you said about you don't have to go big to start. 100%. That is so true. My group, when they got started, we really didn't know what we were doing, and we would look around online for actions to take, call our congressperson and leave a voicemail or something. And we finally realized the power we had in our own city to make change. And even by doing those small things like sending thank you notes to teachers, and it does make such a huge impact. So just like I said, just start and do whatever feels right for you. And I promise you will learn and grow and find new ways to make an impact. But the most important thing you need to do is you need to show up, and especially when things start erupting at school boards, because otherwise there's a very small minority who is very loud in those rooms. But if they are the only people showing up, the school board, the community starts to think, wow, okay, this is what our community really believes. And we know that it's not true. We know that the opposition is small and really not representative of the community, but they are very loud. So it is important that the community sees that there are people standing up for the common sense and in opposition to extremism. And your goal is not only, like I said, to influence those school board members and get them to take the right common sense action, but it's also to influence the community where you live and make sure people are informed about what is going on, and realize, like I said, that there is not the minority is not the majority, is not running or should not be running what the majority wants in the community. And I want to emphasize that on issues we're facing at school board, you are the majority. So on education issues, this is some statistics we pulled from news articles. 87% of people do not support banning books that discuss race. 83% do not support banning books critical of U.S. history. 98% of voters support sex ed in high school, and 89% support it in middle school. So when you hear these extremists standing up, saying horrible things about what's being taught in the curriculum, or whether it's on sex ed, whether it's on, race and education, whether it's LGBTQ plus characters, these numbers are not normal in politics, right? You don't get 80%. People do not agree with that side. You are the majority. So when you stand up and use your voice, just will let you know that you are representing the majority of your community, and that should really give you confidence. So you have now got a group started, you got your people, you're bringing them together, and you're like ready to do something in the community. Maybe you want to, make an impact at your school board. You really want to take action there. What are some of the things you can do? So number one, obviously you can contact your school board members, whether that is an email, phone calls, letters, whatever works best for your community. What I always tell people though is, don't just like drop in a Facebook group and say, hey, let's all email our school board today and talk about this book ban that's coming up. You need to make it really easy for people. So give them the email addresses for the school board members. Give them a template of a letter to write. You don't want them to all send the same letter, but maybe an example of what you sent, maybe some 3 or 4 talking points or issues that they could hit on that they can then craft into their own, their own letter. but people get overwhelmed. A lot of people are intimidated, even for local officials. So anything you can do to make it easy for them and kind of hold their hand, the more people who are likely going to follow through and take an action. And celebrate too. Celebrate the people who are doing that. Ask people to share what they're doing. Fear of missing out. There's a little bit of a group pressure there if you do that. The next thing to do is you can look at social media campaigns, because like I said, the goal is not just to influence your school board members, which you can do through social media, but it's also to inform your community what is going on. Because I have talked to many friends in my own circle who are not like super involved in politics, and I'll say, hey, did you hear about XYZ? They have no idea, because they have jobs and kids and they're running around doing all those like crazy hectic life things. So it's really important that we're putting stuff out so that our friends and our neighbors see it and actually learn what is going on in the community. So like I said, goal is to inform the community, raise awareness. This could be personal posts on Facebook about book bans. Maybe there is a great speech somebody gave at a school board meeting, or maybe there's an extremist school board member who said some way out stuff. Maybe there's somebody with video skills in your group that you can tap and delegate to. Get that feed from a school board meeting. Everybody start sharing that out on social media. Articles about the community that might come out. I know Kim had tons of articles about Bucks County that you were able to share on social media. So, if the media is covering any of this, share that stuff out so people see it. The other thing is, teach your members how to do some stuff on social media. Maybe they're not on Threads. I know a lot of us have jumped off Twitter, X, whatever, but some of these social media platforms are not intuitive. So if you really want to utilize something like Twitter or Thread, because that's where reporters live, that's where politicians live. If you want to be able to tag people and that, that kind of thing, then it may be helpful to teach people how to do that. And also teach them how to tag, find those accounts for those local politicians, for those influential members of the community, for your local reporters, so that you can tag them and get that information out to them. All right, and then when we get to the part about actually going to the meetings, again, don't just say school board meeting is Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. Hope everybody shows up. You need to plan for it. So create an event on your Facebook group, or do a sign-up sheet that you can send around with the information. A sign-up genius is great because you can, copy paste it, put it in an email, put it on Facebook, and then ask people to provide their email addresses, maybe phone numbers, and then you can start actually building a list too of people that you can reach off of social media, because Facebook is great, but the algorithm controls who sees what. So sometimes having that ability to contact people offline is also amazing. But you definitely want to make sure that you are organized, people are coming, people are committing to coming, they're signing up, and then show unity. When you get there, you want to make it really clear that these people are all on your side. So whether you wear matching shirts, some people even have t-shirts made up, wear the same color. I know people just printed off stickers, and then people would walk in with their group and they would slap on that sticker for their group name or whatever they wanted to put on it, which is easy. You can come straight from an office or from picking up your kids at daycare or a play group, and you throw that sticker on and it shows that you're part of that group. And then the last thing is lining up speakers. Again, don't just assume people are going to do it. Figure out, what do we want to cover at this meeting? What topics do we want to hit with the school board? And make sure there's a speaker who's going to touch on all of those. If people are scared to speak, maybe they want to just be encouraged to go watch the first time. I have seen more than one speaker go to a school board meeting with no intention of speaking, and they're getting so mad that they stand up at the last minute and start to talk. But maybe an opportunity for people to practice, if they're a little bit nervous. And the other thing you really need to do before you go to school board meetings is to make sure that you familiarize yourself with the process. So do you need to sign up ahead of time to speak? How many people are allowed to speak at a meeting? Is there a time limit on the speech? Because you don't want to have this fabulous 5-minute speech and find out you only get 3 minutes. I've also seen things where they speak at the very end of the meeting. So it's 2.5 hours in, and people have to go home for babysitters. So make sure you know what are the rules around speaking so that you can be prepared and that your members can be prepared. Okay. You've got people going, you're ready to go, you're going up to the school board meeting. What is it you want to present? How do you want to, give your speech or get your information out? So first of all, introduction and connection. So what we know in a lot of instances, and Kim even referenced this, is that people showing up to these meetings, especially on these extremist topics, do not live in the communities. They are being brought in from surrounding communities. They have no connection to your school. So start off by just introducing yourself and introducing your connection to the community. You have kids in school or grandchildren in the district. You've lived here for this long. You have a business there. Thank the school board members for their contributions. You know, I actually had something happen locally, and they shipped somebody in from Wisconsin, and we all like rolled our eyes. We were like, you are coming in to talk about a local issue here in Mason, Ohio, and you are from Wisconsin. It's absurd. So showing your connection and that you are actually part of the school is really, really important. Okay, and then you probably have 3 to 5 minutes. So do an outline, but really what you want to do is just speak from the heart. Why are you speaking today? Why are you up there? Why do you care? Personal stories are where it's at. Okay, so data is great. A lot of us love data. We love to share all that information about why this is that or this is that. Data goes in and out of people's minds, though. People are going to leave. They're not going to remember that. What they remember is those personal stories, the emotions, the things that tug at their heart. So sharing a personal story about why a book ban would impact your child or someone you care about, or a story about how something like that impacted you, your life. Anything you can do to make it into a personal story or share the impact that's going to have will be remembered much longer than sharing a bunch of data and facts. The other thing is to stay super focused. That this is, you know, it doesn't matter what's going on in Washington, D.C. It doesn't matter what's going on with the presidential election. This is about your town and your kids. And so you want to bring it home and focus on what's going on where you live. And it's also about kids. This is not about a one party or another. This is about what is best for children. So that is the focus on what you want to be thinking about when you're getting up there to share. The other thing that we like to touch on is do not repeat disinformation. And I can't emphasize this enough. Do not repeat disinformation. It is so infuriating when you hear somebody get up and say something to the effect of like, there's pornography in our library, or the teachers are groomers, and you want to get up and say back, teachers are not groomers. But what you're actually doing is repeating that disinformation, and it embeds in people's heads. Multiple studies have shown things like saying no one is taking away your guns actually is counterproductive, because what happens is that people hear it and then they leave, and then in a couple of weeks they're like, I thought I heard something about pornography in the school library. Like, there's a disconnect there. It's just neuroscience. So do not repeat disinformation. What they remember is the salaciousness, not what you actually wanted to say. So if someone is repeating that disinformation, you just say, no, that is incorrect. You may have been exposed to misinformation if this is in a personal one-on-one conversation. But if someone's saying this in a school board speech, don't get up there and repeat or say that's, you know, there's no pornography in our school libraries. Instead, you just want to use the truthful information. You know, I believe students must learn accurate history. Teaching fairy tales does not prepare them. All students should feel welcome and accepted and see themselves in books at schools. I trust teachers to do what is age appropriate. They are the professionals here. So just don't repeat the disinformation, just share the truthful information and your views and things that reflect your values. Also, it's okay to have a villain. It's kind of, you want people to kind of rally around, you know, fighting something. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to turn other parents, you know what, I just realized it should say other parents there and there, but other parents into villains. Because there are also a lot of people who come to school board meetings. Maybe they hear something's going on. They're not quite sure. They're sitting there. They don't have all the information. And let's be real. If you heard that there was pornography in your school library, or someone had shared something and you didn't have the full picture, you might be a little bit worried about that. You might go to the school board meeting to check it out. And if someone gets up there and says, all of you people here who think there's, you know, that this is happening, or off your rockers, that's going to turn those people off who you actually want to bring over to your side. So just don't pit parents against parents. If you need a villain, it can be a few extremists. It could be that extreme school board member who's up there trying to ban books. You just don't want to say, you know, anybody, blanket statement, anybody who's who disagrees with me is an extremist, is a, you know, whatever the word choice you may be using. So don't blame entire political parties, don't blame entire groups. If you want to define a villain, define it very narrowly to those few extremists or that political, you know, elected official who's doing that kind of negative stuff. But you want to try to be as open and welcoming to the parents there who, you know, maybe really don't know what's going on or just trying to figure it out. Sorry, this Zoom thing is in my way. I'm trying to advance the slide. Okay. Now, these are some of our book ban talking points, and I will send these to you after. So these are great things to incorporate into speeches, you know, just core values. We want every kid to feel safe at school, calling out directly about how extreme some of these bans are. You know, they're banning books about like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks nowadays. That this isn't about parents' rights. This is about using your kids' education for a political agenda. We want the right to decide what's best for our children, and what they're trying to do is take that right away from me. They can say what they want their kids to do, but they don't have a right to tell me that my child is not able to do that. We want to own patriotism, right? Let's, you know, there's a lot of people like to wrap themselves in the flag who are extremist, but what you're really doing here is, you know, you are doing censorship that is completely against the values of our country. I like to say, flip the frame on who's playing politics. You know, libraries offer a wide variety of topics so that people can come and learn about everything. They're not endorsing every book in their collection or saying everybody has to read this, but book banners are doing that. They are imposing their political views and trying to shut other people down. So like I said, I'm not going to read all these talking points to you, but I will send them to you so you have them if you want to incorporate any of them into any kind of a school board speech. And then I'm going to kick it over to Julie, and we're going to talk about kind of what Kim touched on, outside the box thinking of ways to get attention for your efforts.
And some of you in the chat have already done some things outside the box, which is really cool, involving the faith community and things like that. But definitely want you thinking outside the box. So things like holding a positive event, like a school supply drive, to support the teachers, and pass out info on bans. The thank you cards, we have that on here, passing out banned books at meetings, stocking those little libraries in your communities with banned books, highlighting books that are being banned on social media, wearing t-shirts with banned authors, books, and wording about the bans, holding a banned book club like Kim suggested, and like we do here at Red, Wine, and Blue, and changing your profile pictures on social media to you holding banned books. Now, a couple of years ago, we had a read-in of banned books at our state school board. It was called Read-In for Accurate Education, because folks were trying to actually eliminate American history, Black American history specifically, in the Ohio school districts. So we got together on a very rainy Tuesday morning and read books by authors of color. And we were there, we were, you know, quiet for the most part, you know, reading, had our signs, umbrellas, tents, you know, all the whole thing. And we were the actual calm in the storm. The opposite side, they were pushing and shoving, and they were loud and obnoxious. And, you know, we got a lot of positive press that day because, you know, we were the calm folks in the room, and that's definitely what you always want to be. So here's some of the pictures here. Some folks brought their kids, but there was a big group of us, a very diverse group as well. And, you know, we just sat there and we read. And so, you know, that was, I thought it was an effective thing. So some final thoughts for you here. Just number one, remember to present a calm face to counter the yelling and the shouting, because their side sometimes tends to yell and shout. And when you don't do that, that makes folks really want to kind of listen to what you have going on. Second, reach out and support your teachers and librarians. Things like the thank yous and all that was talked about earlier. Learn the book review process at your school. That's really super important because you want to know if they're actually following the process, first of all, and then second, what is the process so that you know how to effectively fight it. And then watch the other school districts around you and get prepared, because if it's not in your district yet, it will be.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Couple of things just to let you know before we end here, and we'll look at the chat for questions. So if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat right now. We have several resources on the Red, Wine, and Blue website. One of them, we have guides. So we have a Troublemaker guide, which is kind of a, how do you get started? How do you get a group going? Just how do you organize in your community? And then our parent playbook is a little more focused on school board issues and kind of some of the things that we've covered tonight. So those are on our website and you can download those. They're totally free. You can go check those out. And then the other thing is, if you've been listening to all of this and you were like, hell yes, I am ready to start a group in my community. We actually have a great way to support you in doing that. So Kim is now the Deputy Director of Trouble Nation. Trouble Nation is our nationwide network of grassroots groups. So we want to help people organize in their communities. So Trouble Nation will help you get a group started. They have a landing page where you can create a group and people can find you. They will support you. We have trainings like this. They have a whole series of trainings. In fact, I think they're on the 301 level trainings now. On a multitude of different topics to make your group super effective. There's also resources on the, we have like online resources that you can tap into, videos and trainings, you know, agendas, things that you use to like run a meeting. So anyways, they will help you, also networking. Obviously you start a group and they're going to help connect you with other people in your state and nationally who are doing this as well, because us supporting each other is so powerful. And I will just show you what the platform looks like. So if you get on there and you're like, I'm starting a group, you get on, you put your group on the platform and you show up as one of these beautiful pink dots, and then people can come find you. So if someone's in your community is feeling like you are, and they're like, I need to do something, they can come in, put the zip code, and they can find your group. You can put events on here so people could find events near you. And you'll see that this, I don't even think this is updated. I'm pretty sure, Kim, there's probably more pink dots than there are. I think we're up to like 135, 140. We only started a couple months ago. So Trouble Nation, we'll drop the links to that in the chat as well. So please come check that out. So if you want to get going tonight after all of this, then we want to help you. We want to keep supporting you with that. If there are any questions, we can take those.
Somebody wanted to know if there was a sweet spot for the size of your group.
I thought of that question earlier, and I was talking about the parameters and the focus. I mean, I personally would like to grow it as big as possible because not everyone's going to participate. What I'm saying, the focus and this and the size is more of just knowing, like, for example, where I live, we focus on our local community. We only allow people who live in our city to be part of the group, because I don't want to deal with like the state legislative race in the next district and the school board over there. Like, I want to deal with what's in our district. So we don't allow anybody from outside that. We have 750 people in there. I would say there's a core group of like 30 to 40, mostly women, who show up for everything, do the work, are in the leadership of it. But we have 750 people in there. So when it comes election time, we can make sure they all turn out to vote for those local school board elections. We give them a voting guide because they may share our values and they may like what we're doing, but not all of them are going to engage. So I would say the more people, the better, but you just got to make sure you kind of control who's in that group and what your focus is. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, you did. Someone asked if they could have your slide deck.
I will send the slide deck and I will send the book ban talking points. I think that's what I send after. I don't think I'm missing anything. I'll send that. And there's actually some resources also attached of some different places like the American Library Association and Penn America and other places you can look to get information.
All right. And then I'm sorry, I was answering a question. I did see another one back up here. Hold on a second.
I can do one, Julie, if you don't mind.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
I think this is really important for people who are in a leadership role, is to remember that everyone can have a role. So there was a question about, if you have severe anxiety, how can you still contribute? And it's important for leaders, even as they go through their journey and you get more adept at doing these things, to remember that there are still people who are kind of back in the beginning, right? Who are new to all of this. They can be involved. And I had a really rough day. Actually, it was just yesterday, and I was at my school board meeting last night, and I had exactly that person show up for me. And they brought me a snack and water. That was it. And it was, I almost cried because I hadn't eaten all day. And I was so grateful that this person knew me well enough to, like, just from supporting me. And yeah, so administrative work that you can do behind the scenes, keeping member lists and email lists updated, doing stuff on socials. There are things behind the scenes where these people doing this need help, and there's room for everyone.
Definitely, definitely something that's good. One of the other things that someone asked is, what if an extremist joins the group to try to get inside information? Julie, do you want to address that?
Oh, we know we have people in our group, because when you get to be 750 people, it does get hard, which is why we try to screen as much as possible. We look at people's social media when we can. We're able to look up voting in Ohio. People register by party, so we're able to kind of look up where, if they're registered. But you know, my philosophy is that I don't share anything in that group that I wouldn't say to somebody in public, or I wouldn't want on the front page of the newspaper. Like, I'm going to say what I think, and I will stand by what I think. I am sure information gets shared, back about events, but we have never had a problem at any of our events. We're polite. If somebody comes into a meeting that you don't think should be there, maybe you know who they are. It's perfectly fine to smile, because you're being recorded. So smile and just say, you know what, this is open to our members only, and sorry you're not, we need to ask you to leave, and you just keep smiling, and that's fine. But I just say, anything you wouldn't want to put on the front page of the newspaper, anything you wouldn't say in public, just don't put that into your group. And
Excellent.
kick people out if you find out. I mean, go ahead, kick them, block them, ban them, that's fine.
Okay, and that was all of the questions that we had. We did have somebody share an article that they wrote in the chat. And actually, Julie, I'm thinking that we probably want to reach out to this person afterward.
Jackie sent it to me, and I actually meant to write you back today. I'm sorry, it was a crazy day. Yes, thank you for dropping that, and I will reach out, because I would like to speak to you about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's all I had.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. Please look, the email will probably be tomorrow morning, so look for the email tomorrow with all the resources and the slides. And thank you to Kim, because I know she's had a very long week, so thank you for coming and presenting. And we will see you all hopefully soon.